Hey everyone, Dan from Telestats here, back with another Eurovision YouTube video. This time it is going through the first semi-final and trying to work out which of these countries is going to qualify. It isn't an easy task. Let's get down to it and let's make it very simple. Let's talk about the countries that are definite, either definite qualifiers or definitely not going to qualify. So the definite qualifiers, I have Cyprus, Russia, Ukraine, Lithuania and Malta. That's 5. Cyprus, Russia, Ukraine, Lithuania and Malta. The 2 countries that I don't think are going to qualify are Slovenia and North Macedonia. All the stats have them bottom, all the polls have them bottom, all of Twitter universally pretty much says that this is a load of rubbish and neither of them are going to qualify. And frankly, I agree. The other thing to note with the definite qualifiers on my list is that they're all under 1.10 in the to qualify market. So, everyone is pretty sure about these 5 anyway. Now, although I've said that it's a definite qualifier, I do just want to touch on Malta because it has been on a little journey, let's say, this week with its rehearsals. If you watched my Malta video, you know that I was very, very positive about Malta. I thought it stood a real good chance, maybe first, maybe second place. And I think Destiny did everything that she was supposed to do. She brought the voice. The voice is the best part. In my opinion, her act has been diminished, maybe not ruined, but diminished by everyone around her. The staging, the camera work, the costume, it's all off, and I'll go through that just now. Let's talk about the dress. In the first rehearsal, Destiny wore a very pink, skimpy outfit, and immediately everyone was on her back that they didn't like it, and frankly, I agreed. Somebody wrote on my Twitter, actually, that it looks like something that Katie Price might wear, and I couldn't really disagree. So in the fallout from that rehearsal, there was lots of talk about self-love and self-empowerment and you should do what you want and should be judged by others, which is absolutely true in real life and I'm fully on board. However, this is Eurovision. The entire premise of the show is that you're being judged by 200 million people. You can't walk on stage saying, well, at least I love myself and then expect everyone to be on board. The world doesn't work that way. The dress wasn't good. They changed it in the second rehearsal and they were right to change it. Even so, the dress in the second rehearsal still wasn't great. It was a silver dress, but she's wearing those pink boots from the first rehearsal. I don't really know much about fashion, but I don't think that bright pink and silver really go together. And in fact, there are so many women wearing silver that WeWeBlogs actually did a poll saying, who is your favorite act wearing silver? So it might be a little bit overdone. The other thing I want to draw attention to is the staging and the camera work. This song is big. Destiny has a big voice. It's a song that requires that the staging match the voice, and I think that they really let her down in this regard. She stood on a plinth with 4 dancers to the side, and what happens with the camera work is basically you get 2 angles. You either have an angle of extreme close-up or you have an angle where it's too far back because the cameraman is trying to get all the dancers in shot, and you never really feel connected with Destiny. And also it's a very empty stage as well. There's a big LED screen behind, but there isn't much going on, and I think that it really lets her down as well. I will say that it does get better towards the end. She walks off the plinth, there's a lot of pyro, and it's going to be a grand finish to the semi-final, and I still think that she will win the semi-final. But with regards to winning, I am less bullish than before, I have to say. She's definitely slipped down the rankings for me. As well as that, there have also been other acts which have come to the fore. So yeah, I think that she is now possibly not in contention for the win. Just to show that I'm not alone in thinking that Malta's overall performance wasn't great, I'm going to show you some stats. This is the MyEurovisionScoreboard app. Now, this is the chart where we were monitoring since the 28th of March. And you can see that for the vast majority of the time, Malta is leading the pack. In fact, let's focus on Malta. There we go. Right, 9th of May, and then immediately she dips and flatlines for her second rehearsal. We go back to the overall. She's leading, and now other countries have overtaken her. She is now in 5th place on the app behind Cyprus, Russia, France, and Italy. But if we look on the overall scores, she's still second place, just about. And if we look at the MyEurovisionScoreboard app for just this semi-final, let's take a look. Again, Malta leading the pack from the 28th of May, and then she flatlines again. In fact, she's struggling with Lithuania just there. She's just above Lithuania, Don't get confused by this blue line, that's actually Ukraine. And we've got Cyprus and Russia ahead. Let's focus on Malta now and just have a look. Yeah, okay, so you can see here, 9th of May, this region, this is where she has her first rehearsal. And then you can see here, the second rehearsal is better and she starts to rise again. Saying that though, she is still winning in the overall for her semi-final, ahead of Cyprus and Lithuania, so still pretty good. Now let's talk about Sweden, because Sweden is a really interesting case here. Let's take a look at the stats. These are the YouTube views after 1 hour for both rehearsals for semi-1. And check out Sweden. 4th from the bottom and 4th from the bottom again. So not great. Now let's take a look at the MyEurovisionScoreboard app. This is an app used by Eurovision fans, thousands of them. So let's have a look at Sweden on the overall scores first. It's somewhere in this mix. Oh, there it is. Sweden. You can see how many countries are above it. I mean, Iceland, Bulgaria, Greece, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Finland, loads and loads of countries. It's just not doing well overall. I can't even find it anymore. Somewhere around here. Sweden, there it is. Now let's take a look at the scores since the 28th of March. If we hide everything and look at Sweden. Whoa, that's a big drop from 3,000 points all the way down to minus 110 right now. It's actually got a lower score than it did when we started monitoring. This is an undeniable and very clear sign that Sweden has a problem here. Let's look at the, this is for this semi-final. So the last chart was the overall stats with all the songs. This is just the semi-final. Where is Sweden in here? Oh, down there. And finally, I want to show you 2 polls from the MyEurovisionScoreboard website. The first is entitled, Who Had the Best Second Rehearsal on May the 12th? I don't know if this is too small for you to see, but I'm going to scroll down. No Sweden, no Sweden. There it is, at the very bottom, even below North Macedonia and Slovenia. 92 votes out of 6,000. MyEurovision then did another poll entitled, Who Should Win Semi-Final 1 of Eurovision 2021? Scroll all the way down again, and it's just above North Macedonia and Slovenia. It's third last, underneath Australia. My personal opinion is that Voices is just an incredibly generic song. It sounds exactly like the kind of song that the UK would bring to Eurovision. It's pseudo-uplifting, but ultimately meaningless. Tack onto that, they actually performed 4th in the semi-final, a really, really bad running order slot. So when you couple all of these things in, the bad song, the bad stats, the bad running order, everything bad, I have to oppose this. I mean, I know that they probably will get a lot of jury points, but this is one to oppose, especially at those prices. And even now, even though the price has drifted out, I think it's still layable. And this is the point in the video where I become a massive hypocrite, because Norway has had bad YouTube results. It was outside the top 10. Yep, it was outside the top 10 on both YouTube charts. It hasn't got very good MyEurovisionScoreboard app scores, but I still think it will qualify. There's something about it. When you have Sweden, it's just a dude singing. There really isn't much going on. But Norway, you have that whole production, that whole staging. I think it's memorable. The song is pleasant, as I said in my Norway video. I think it will get points in the televote. I don't think it's going to do so well with the juries, but I don't think many songs this semi are going to do particularly well with the juries. I think there's going to be quite a lot all in the same area. So I have faith in Norway. So this is my first pick that's not doing well in the stats, but I still think will qualify. As I said in my very first YouTube video on Eurovision, I said that context in Eurovision is massive. You can't just go by the stats. You've got to take into account many, many other things. And I've just done that with Norway, and I'm going to do the opposite now with Azerbaijan. Where Norway had bad stats, had bad poll results, I still said I think it's going to qualify. Azerbaijan, I'm not giving that luxury. It is doing okay in polls, but it's doing extremely well in the YouTube views. And why is that? Azerbaijan always does well in YouTube views. So does Cyprus, so does Greece, so does Russia, so does Poland. They always outperform where they should be. And Azerbaijan is actually very high up in the rankings on the YouTube views, but this is my pick for non-qualification, and it's a dangerous pick, but it's so borderline. Matahari is so just not inspiring to me at all that I am going to say it doesn't qualify. Moving on to Croatia now. Now, Croatia is a country that does not get the luxury of boosted YouTube views. So the stats that we see on the website are probably about accurate. Now, I personally don't like this song very much. I think it's very soulless, and I don't think it's sung very well. I find it almost amateurish, like X Factor contestant amateurish. And this is where I'm going to fall back on the Eurovision community, the betting community, people that I trust within that community. I'm pretty certain that Croatia qualifies. I'll go along with that. I'll say that Croatia is another pick to qualify. We're starting to get down to the nitty-gritty now, the real borderline stuff, the Romanias, the Israels, the Australias, the Irelands. So let's have a little dig into that, shall we? Let's take a look at Israel. Israel was always borderline. The staging isn't fantastic. The song isn't that great either. And now, with recent news stories, I'm wondering if there will be a hit to the televote. Now, Israel was actually in the top 10 on our YouTube views. And this is, again, where context needs to be taken into account. As I said about, the news stories, I think they are going to take a hit. And I think that they were borderline, and now they are out. I think they are no qualifiers. That is 7 countries now that I've said are going to qualify. 3 spaces left. Let's move on to Australia. Now, Australia, of course, can't make it into Rotterdam because of the pandemic, so they're sending a recording of the performance. Now, I said in my very first Eurovision video that any recorded song wouldn't make it through. It just doesn't have that effect. Having looked at the video that they've done, it's actually quite impressive. Now, Australia are outside the top 10 again on both semi-final YouTube stats, but I'm wondering if Eurovision will make such a big deal about them being, away from the stadium that it almost becomes memorable to the audience. If you look at the YouTube views, Australia's first semi-final rehearsal video got very, very low views. It came second last. Their second rehearsal video did much better. It just about made it into the top 10, but I have to stick by my guns here. It's a shame. The song isn't great, but I think the video is interesting. But even so, I'm going to call Australia a no qualifier. For those of you following along that are good at maths, you'll know that there are only 3 countries I haven't talked about: Belgium, Romania, and Ireland. So, by definition, that means that those must be the final 3 of my picks. Romania had a disastrous set of rehearsals. If you look at the MyEurovisionScoreboard app stats, the link, by the way, is in the description below. They also had a big drop after their first rehearsal, and they didn't improve after their second. But I think Roxanne does have a unique song. I think it should hopefully get some jury points. Other songs in this semi just seem a little bit plastic. This one has a bit of depth behind it. I would rather listen to Amnesia than many other songs that are going through. Belgium is another country that leaves me cold. I don't have an opinion on it, good or bad. It really is on that borderline. It kind of reminds me of Romania 2018 Voices. That didn't qualify. I'm not a huge fan of the Belgian staging, but it kind of qualifies for me in absence of anything else qualifying. Basically, it qualifies just because it exists. And finally, Ireland. This really is a long shot. If Sweden does qualify, I think it will switch with Ireland. I think Ireland will be out and Sweden will be in. But for now, I'm sticking to my guns. I'm saying that Sweden doesn't qualify and Ireland does. It's a crappy song. The staging, again, isn't great. But there's just so much driftwood. How can you call this with any certainty, really? To be fair to Ireland, it did do pretty well in its second rehearsal stats. I guess the staging is kind of innovative. I just not feeling the song, really. So that's my take. There have been some bold calls in this video. I'm not convinced that they're all gonna hit. And for someone who has spent the last 5 years building a website dedicated to social media stats and looking at those stats and following those stats, I'm doing the complete opposite in this video. I'm actually going against the grain quite a lot. And maybe they shouldn't be disregarded. If you look at the YouTube rehearsal stats in 2019, if you look at the top 10 of Semi-1 Rehearsal 1, Semi-1 Rehearsal 2, Semi-2 Rehearsal 1, Semi-2 Rehearsal 2, if you look at the top 10, Semi-1 Rehearsal 1 got 7 out of 10, Semi-1 Rehearsal 2 got 8 out of 10, Semi-2 Rehearsal 1 got 9 out of 10 correct, and Semi-2 Rehearsal 2 got 8 out of 10. So it's just looking at the stats in a cold, hard perspective, did really well that year. Will it do the same this year? I think that there is a little bit more context to be taken into account, so that's why I've gone against the website a few times this time. But we'll see how things turn out. Let me know what you think. You're never shy about telling me where you think I'm going wrong. I looked at the odds just now. The market thinks that my prediction is a load of rubbish. You've got Azerbaijan and Israel well below even. So the market thinks that they will qualify, even though I have expressed skepticism in this video. Equally, Ireland and Belgium, the market doesn't think they're going to qualify. Let me say this. This is a really hard semi-final to call towards the bottom. There's so many borderline acts, and there's so many acts where you think, well, they might do well with the juries, but not with the televote, but the song is great, but the stats aren't good. And it's a mix, and you just have to pick and choose and hope for the best. I have no confidence, to be honest, in my prediction, but this is what I'm going with, and history will tell us just how bad it was. Comment below who you think is going to qualify, but before you do that, make sure you subscribe, retweet, like, all those things. Follow us on our socials at TallyStats on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And I'll see you in the next video when I do predictions for the semi-final 2. I'll see you then. Cheers.